Hi guys, Aaron Wilson again. This will be speech 1.2 for Web Speech 1010 at Roane State. I don't have a funny story or an embarrassing event to talk about. Instead, I thought an interesting story would be about my wedding. My wife and I were married October 11th, 2007 at Norris Tea Room at Norris Dam State Park. It's a beautifully constructed building with a lot of rustic wood elements and a large stone fireplace at one end of the building, which is where we held the setting for our wedding. And the reason I believe it's an interesting story is because we didn't have a conventional wedding. Instead, we had a medieval themed wedding with a costume twist. I wore a black tunic trimmed in a Celtic trim, black pants, and black knee-high boots. I also carried a sword on my side. My groomsman wore a similar outfit, only instead of a black tunic, his was green, and he carried a larger sword strewn across his back. My wife's wedding dress was green and white velvet, and it was themed after Arwen's coronation dress from Return of the King. Her bridesmaids' dresses were very similar, but they were solid green as well. Our rings were custom made by a local jeweler and a friend of the family. They're white gold, and instead of having diamonds, they have emeralds as a stone setting. Now, with it being October, I remember the weather was relatively cool, crisp, but not bitter cold like the oncoming winter. The trees were changing colors, and it was beautiful outside. With us being both relatively young at the time, we were on a budget, and many of the items, decorations and whatnot, had to be handmade. My father actually built a lot of the place settings, the cake stands, out of real wood, drilled holes in them and placed candles in them for the place settings and table settings. Our actual outfits were hand sewn by my wife's aunt. It took her a very long time and a lot of getting things together to get it to work, but they turned out wonderfully. We used a lot of ivy and wood theme as a decoration because we wanted a very natural setting to it. Now, my best man was probably one of my better friends at the time. His name was Travis. I worked with him for many years, and we got to know each other very well. He was the one that had the idea to carry the larger sword across his back. I thought that was quite funny, but it added a twist to it that made it his. A few other important people that were there. My wife's maid of honor was her friend Laurel, who was from high school, and she had been living out of state for a number of years, so it was a good surprise to see her be able to make it in and be a part of our ceremony. One of the more important people that were there were my grandparents, my grandfather specifically. They're from California, and I don't get to see them very often, but he came in, him and my grandmother, and they actually dressed for the occasion in the medieval outfits that they had created themselves. So it was pleasant to see that, and I remember it was a very special time for me because now that it's later, I get to look back and realize that that was one of the last times I actually got to see my grandfather alive. There wasn't any kind of super events or anything that happened with it, but all in all, it was a very unique wedding. My wife and I both get comments on our rings all the time. We actually have a picture of the wedding on one of our credit cards, and we get comments about that as well. But just the fact of it being a little bit different made that ours, and I thought it was a good story to share. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you, and goodbye.